Back in the late 18th century, the Industrial Revolution kicked off in the US and changed the course of history forever. The US is now the biggest country in the world with into its economy and is now the biggest country in the world when it comes to global power. However, the US is also the biggest emitter in greenhouse gases in history. These emissions are the main causes of climate change as we know today. But how exactly does it work? Through human activity, CO2 or carbon dioxide is released at the atmosphere through cars and factories, which then goes into the atmosphere. The, the atmosphere then absorbs heat from the sun and sends it back to the earth, which in turn warms up the planet. According to NASA, the temperature on the planet has gone up 0.8 degrees Celsius since 1888. That might not seem like a huge difference on paper, but in recent years we have witnessed stronger hurricanes, more droughts, more melting of the polar ice caps, the destruction of coral reefs, and the list goes on. Most people don't understand the magnitude of the situation, which is why people choose not to act to help the fight climate change. A huge piece of evidence is that climate change is starting to become real is that the polar ice caps are melting. An article by the Natural Geographic states the famed snows of Kilimanjaro have melted more than 80% since 1912. The glaciers in Johar Himalaya in India are retreating so fast that researchers believe that most central and eastern Himalayan glaciers could disappear by 2035. This is so alarming that the melting ice is because the melted ice is now going into the ocean. Related to the melting polar ice caps, the rise of sea level poses a serious threat. This is proven because as the sea level rises, tropical storms get stronger. According to the Center for Climate and Energy Solutions, and I quote, for example, sea level rise intensified the impact of Hurricane Sandy, which caused an estimated $65 billion in damages in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut in 2012. Much of that damage is related to global coastal flooding, end quote. In addition to the sea level rising, the ocean is expanding due to heat. Expanding due to heat. This problem goes even further as the amount of carbon in the atmosphere increases the amount of acid rain that falls onto Earth. This is important because life on Earth can be affected by acid rain. For example, animals living in bodies of water could die off because most of them won't withstand the change in pH. Another serious issue is the destruction of the coral reefs. The Guardian reported that the number of new corals on the Great Barrier Reef crashed by 89% after the climate change-induced mass bleaching of 2016 and 2017. The mass bleaching is when the water gets too warm and coral will expand in algae, living in their tissues, causing the coral to turn completely white. When the reefs turn white, they're extremely vulnerable but can recover. In this case, 89% of the Great Barrier Reef was destroyed in a warming ocean. Why is the coral reef so important? Coral reefs can protect coastlines from damaging effects of waves and tropical storms, provide habitats and shelter for many organisms, and it is a source of nitrogen and other nutrients to marine life. Another huge problem is deforestation. Trees are usually cut down for materials or to clear land. Trees are extremely helpful to remove CO2 from the atmosphere and use it for photosynthesis, often storing CO2. However, when trees are burned to the ground, it acts like a carbon bomb. The amount of CO2 that is stored inside the trees will be released back into the atmosphere at once. According to a source called Climate and Weather, it is estimated that more than 1.5 billion tons of carbon are released into the atmosphere due to deforestation, mainly the cutting and burning of trees every year. Global warming needs to be the center of attention as it is the most important challenge mankind has ever faced. But why do people question the existence of climate change? The answer is politics. The strongest opposition to climate change is politics. There are so many politicians that have publicly come out to deny climate change. For example, President Trump and James Inhofe. These politicians have a major influence and constantly publicly state that global warming is a hoax, something that isn't even man-made. With the amount of non-believers in office, this could explain why a carbon tax cannot be put in place. A carbon tax would put a tax on anything carbon-related and would sway the public and companies to not use it. This could be a major help when trying to reduce emissions, but Congress will never allow it. Politicians will do anything to get elected. So by convincing the public that climate change needs to be addressed, you force the politicians to do the same. When Obama first ran for president, he was actually against gay marriage. But in 2015, the major supporters for gay when the public became major supporters for gay marriage in 2015, all laws banning it were abolished, allowing same-sex couples to get married. The public have the power to make the necessary changes to stop climate change before it is too late. There is little time, but it is still possible to reverse the effects of climate change before the worst happens. One obvious solution is to stop deforestation. If we plant more trees, we will have organisms that can absorb CO2 for their own benefit, plus species of animals that depend on trees, like the orangutan, will be able to thrive again once their habitats are restored. Another important factor is to switch from fossil fuels to more solar and wind energy, which are reliable and much safer for the environment. Vehicles that rely on fossil fuels can switch to electric to lower emissions if released into the atmosphere. Another solution could be the carbon tax. People have busy lives and will use cars and vehicles that emit carbon to go on with their lives. A carbon tax would force people to switch away from carbon because they don't want to pay a heavy tax. This would force companies to step away from carbon because the tax would be immense. Making electric cars cheap and more accessible is also definitely important. According to former astronaut slash former director of the Earth Science Division of NASA, Pierce Sellers, and I quote, "If we stop burning fossil fuels right now, the planet will still keep warming for a little while before cooling off again." This, end quote. This is the most important issue humanity will ever face, and if it isn't taken seriously, the consequences will be too difficult to imagine.